So the next two sections, we're going to factor trinomials, problems that have three terms. And in this section, it's easier factoring. We're going to factor, problems like x squared plus 8x plus 6. So this is a trinomial because it has three terms. Let me change this not to plus 6, otherwise it doesn't factor. How about x squared plus 8x plus 7? Not that that matters. The kinds of problems we're going to factor in this section have three terms, and the coefficient of the first term is a 1. And that's going to make this easier than the next section. We're going to learn two different ways to factor the problems in this section. Both of the ways are going to be dependent on this template. What I'm going to do, regardless of the technique that I'm using to factor, is I'm going to know something about how the factoring is going to turn out. It turns out that when we factor trinomials, that usually trinomials factor into the product of two binomials. And that would be the case for this problem that I just made up. The problem that I just made up, I can cite factor, will factor into those two binomials. So we're going to learn techniques, and it's going to be relatively important to look at the signs in the original problem and to know the signs in my answer. The signs in the original problem will force the signs in my answer, and this template, we'll go through it one step at a time as we go through the chapter, is going to be, it's going to be important. And I'll talk about each row in the template and how to use it as we get deeper into the section. I'll just kind of dive in. So for the first part of this video, which I think there's going to be three parts, we're going to factor something, a trinomial that starts with three terms. We're going to rewrite it with four terms, and then we're going to factor by grouping, and then if I'm feeling good, I'm going to check. For all the problems that we do in this first video, if there's a common factor, I'll factor it out first. I think I saved the common factor problems for the third part of this section, so that's not going to apply to the third video. And then, then I need to do more. Then I need to follow the steps. Let me try to, with the steps handy, show you a problem, and I'll keep this template handy. So let me factor x squared plus 10x plus 16 using the grouping method. I look at the trinomial that I'm about to factor, and step one of my steps asks me to pull out a common factor. Not all three terms have an x, so I couldn't one parentheses factor out a common factor of an x. And because the first term has a coefficient of 1, the only numerical common factor would be a 1. This problem doesn't have a GCF, doesn't have a greatest common factor. I'm going to proceed to step 2. Step 2 involves the template and the last number that's written in the problem. The last number that's written in the problem is the constant, is 16. I'm going to find all the factors of 16, all the numbers that multiply out to be 16 that have signs both positive. So the template is going to help me on this second step to determine the structure of the factors of the last number. Sometimes I'll want positive factors, sometimes I'll want negative factors, sometimes I'll want a positive and a negative. But this top row of my template says if the original problem has both pluses, then on this second step, when you're trying to find all the factors of the last number, I want only positive factors. And from my little template here that I've been using, those are the factors of 16. 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. The reason I'm using 16, it's the constant in the problem. The reason I'm using positive factors is because my template tells me to use factors. Done with step 2. Now in step 3, I'm going to add up each of the pairs. So I'm going to add up the factors of 1 and 16. I'm going to add up the factors of 2 and 8. I'm going to add up the factors of 4 and 4. The pair that I'm going to need to give me the next number that I haven't touched in the original problem, the 10. I'm going to find the pair that add up to 10. So step 2, I write the factors with the appropriate signs. Step 3, I add up all the factors and find the pair that add up to the middle coefficient. So I found them. Now I'm going to take that middle term, which is 10x, and I'm going to rewrite it using the 2 and the 8. I can rewrite it as 2x plus 8x or 8x plus 2x. It doesn't matter which order that I choose. So now I'm going to, in this step 5, I'm actually going to take and rewrite the problem. So this 10x that was in my trinomial, I'm going to rewrite as 2x plus 8x. So what I've done is I've taken my problem that started with 3 terms, I've turned it very carefully into a problem that has 4 terms. And when a problem has 4 terms, if they're structured properly, I can factor by grouping. So now I'm at a point where I have 4 terms I'm going to factor by grouping. To factor by grouping, I put the first 2 terms in a parentheses, the second 2 terms in a parentheses, I didn't put the sign in that second parentheses because it's positive. First 2 terms, I'd pull out the common factor of x. Second 2 terms, I pull out the common factor of 8. And then I write common parentheses followed by what's in front of the common parentheses. I claim that's the answer. So the only thing that's new are these first couple steps, figuring out how to take the problem with 3 terms and carefully rewrite it as a problem with 4 terms that I could factor by grouping. And that's what the new steps are. Factoring out the GCF is not going to be new. We've done that. Look at the constant, find the factors of it with the appropriate signs, add up all the factors, find the one that adds to the middle pair, the middle coefficient, rewrite the middle term using the factors found in step 3, transform the whole problem so that it goes from a problem, a trinomial, to an other polynomial with 4 terms, and then factor by grouping. Once you get it done, you can check, and I'll just check by foiling. You'll see here that I checked. I did x times x is x squared, x times 8 is 8x, 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 8 is 16, and then I combine my like terms. That's kind of it. That's everything that we're going to do in the first half of the video, but of course there's got to be some pain along the way, and we'll get to that in a bit. So I'm going to work with number 7 and try to follow my steps the best I can for number 7. So in number 7, first step, I look for a common factor. All 3 terms don't have an x. There's not an x to factor out. And because the x squared has a coefficient of 1, there's not a number to factor out. On these first 28 problems, there's not going to be any common factors to deal with. So I'm going to move on to step 2 and look at the 6. I'm going to find all the factors of 6 that are both positive because this problem only has positive signs. So step 2, find the factors of the constant with the right signs. So my factors of 6 are 1 and 6. And 2 and 3. So there's no GCF, done with that. Now I found the factors with the right sign of the last number. Step 3 is going to add these numbers up. So let me add up the 1 and 6. That's going to give me 7. I'm going to add up the 2 and 3. That's going to give me 5. I need the pair that give me the 7. So the pair that I'm going to need are the 1 and the 6. And that's going to allow me to say that the 7x in the problem could be written as 1x plus 6x. So all this work here is designed to give me the ability to take the problem that's been written with 3 terms and turn it into a problem that can be written with 4 terms so that I can factor by grouping. So I'm going to rewrite the problem now so that it has 4 terms. I'm going to write it in either order, but just because I have this order, x squared plus 1x plus 6x plus 6. And now I'm going to factor by grouping. I'm going to put the first 2 terms in a parentheses. I'm going to put the second 2 terms in a parentheses. And then I'm going to common factor each. First 2 terms I'm going to factor out an x and be left with an x plus 1. Second 2 terms in the second parentheses I'm going to factor out a 6 and be left with x plus 1. So you gotta have your common factoring perfected for almost all the problems in this chapter. After I get the common factoring done, I get one parentheses with a common factor, and the other parentheses has what's in front of the common factors. I won't check this, I'll check the next one though. I'm done with problem 2, and now I'm going to move on and do problem 3 with you. And in problem 3, the signs in the original problem are minus first and plus second. When I go to write down the factors, I need double negative factors. So this is where my template's going to come in. So there's no common factor in any of these. I'm not going to worry about the common factor. When I go to factor number 3, so I'm going to work on number 3. I'm going to factor x squared minus 5x plus 6. I'm going to look for the factors of 6, numbers that multiply to 6, and my template tells me if the first sign in the problem is minus and the second sign is plus, that when I'm creating the factors, I need both negatives. So the factors of 6 that are double negative, negative 1 times negative 6 is equal to 6, and negative 2 times negative 3 is equal to 6. So first I look at the last number and my template and find all the factors. After I get the factors, I start adding them up. I'm going to add the first factor of negative 1 plus negative 6, the second pair, negative 2 plus negative 3. If we're adding and the signs are the same, you add the coefficient, you add the numbers and keep them negative. The pair that I'm going to need are going to be the ones that give me the number in the middle. So the pairs that I'm going to need are the negative 2 and the negative 3. First I write down my factors, then I add my factors to figure out which the correct factors are, and then I decide how I'm going to rewrite the term with the x to the first power. I'm going to rewrite the term with the x to the first power as negative 2x, either plus negative 3x, probably, I'm going to probably write it as negative 2x minus 3x. Those are equal to each other, and this one makes it easier for me to factor. So look at the last number, find its factors with the appropriate signs, add up the factors, see the pair that gives me the middle, learn how to rewrite the middle. So now I'm into factoring. I can rewrite this problem as x squared minus 2x minus 3x plus 6. This will equal that. If you combine the minus 2x and minus 3x, you get the minus 5x. Now I'm going to factor by grouping. Put the first 2 terms in a parentheses. Include the negative when I plug the second 2 terms in a parentheses. And now common factor factor. First parentheses, I'm going to factor out an x and be left with an x minus 2. Second parentheses, I need to factor out a negative because it leads with a negative. I'll factor out the common factor of 3 and be left with another x minus 2. So I'm waving my hands and common factoring by in my head. Almost ready to write an answer. I write the common parentheses first, and then what's in front of the common parentheses next. Of course, I have complete freedom. The order that I write the parentheses in is flip-floppable. Both of these will be answers. I'll check this, but this might be the last problem I check. So to check, I can check either. They're both check. I'm trying to match up to the original problem. So for checking, I'm going to FOIL. I'm going to do firsts are x times x, which is an x squared. Outers are x times minus 2, which is minus 2x. Inners, which are minus 3 times x, which is a minus 3x. And lasts, which are minus 3 times minus 2, which is positive 6. The outers and the inners, if they have opposite signs, you subtract. If they have the same signs, you add. So these I'm going to add. And because that matches perfectly the original problem, I know I'm correct. Okay, that's probably the end of my checking because checking takes so long. And my videos are so long that I want to keep them a reasonable length when I can. I'll probably do one problem on each sheet again. And let's do 7 together. So you might want to pause the video and try 7 just to make sure we're in a good place here. So yank out my template. The signs in the problem are minus firsts and plus seconds, so I need double minus factors. First step is I look at the constant and I write all the factors down with it. That means numbers that multiply it to 4 with the proper signs. So I know that 1 times 4 is 4, but I need the factors that are both negative. So negative 1 and negative 4, and negative 2 and negative 2. That's the end of step 1. Well, it's the end of actually step 2 because my step 1 is looking for a common factor, which there wasn't. Now I'm going to add these up. I'm going to go negative 1 plus negative 4 and negative 2 plus negative 2. Because the signs are the same, this is really adding as opposed to subtracting. So negative 1 plus negative 4 is negative 5. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Now I decide on the pair that I need. The pair that I need to give me a minus 5. So that's the pair that I'm going to need. Now I'm going to rewrite the minus 5y. I can rewrite the minus 5y as negative 1y plus negative 4y. I prefer to write that as negative 1y minus 4y. That's all the side work that I normally do in my head. I wouldn't write any of this down if I wasn't teaching it, but when I'm teaching it, I'll write stuff down. So now I'm ready. I'm going to rewrite problem 7 with 4 terms. The order that I rewrite this in doesn't matter, but this is the order that I have written, so I'm going to rewrite it in that order of y squared minus 1y minus 4y plus 4. First 2 terms in a parentheses, second 2 terms along with the negative in the second parentheses. First 2 terms I factor out the common factor of y, and I'm left with a y minus 1. Second 2 terms I have to factor out a negative because I stuffed the negative in the parentheses. The common factor is 4, so I'm factoring out the opposite of the GCF. I'm factoring out a negative 4. And you have to get duplicate parentheses. If you don't get duplicate parentheses, then you don't have the right answer. The answer to problem 7 can be written in either order, but the parentheses I need to have are y minus 4 and y minus 1. Time to get one that has a sign variation. None of those have sign variations. We're already at 20 minutes. I want to spend 10 more minutes on this video, so let's move all the way down to 15, 16. I'm going to do 16. When I look at 16, I'm going to think of 16 as x squared minus 1x minus 6. This is, for me, the bottom version. The first sign in the problem is minus. The second sign in the problem is minus. I'm looking for a positive and negative numbers that multiply to be negative 6, where the smaller number is positive, bigger number is negative. So I'm first going to look for numbers that multiply to negative 6, one positive, one negative, smaller number positive, bigger number negative. Smaller number positive, bigger number negative. So this template gives me some guidance. Signs in the original problem, first sign is a minus, second sign is a minus. I'm looking for plus and minus numbers. Smaller one positive means bigger one negative. That's my step of getting the potential numbers to break up the middle term. Now I'm going to add them. This is really subtracting because they have opposite signs. So now I'm going to do 1 plus negative 6 and 2 plus negative 3. 1 plus negative 6 is negative 5. 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1. Because those have opposite signs, I'm subtracting as opposed to adding. So now I know the pair that I need, and I can rewrite the negative 1x using either 2x plus negative 3x or negative 3x plus 2x. If I have a positive and a negative, I like to put the positive second. It makes the factoring easier. So I'm going to rewrite the problem with a negative 3x followed by a positive 2x, as opposed to a 2x minus 3x, which I would have changed that into. So when you have a negative and a plus, when you're breaking it up, put the negative first. It'll make your life a lot easier. So now I'm rewriting this with 4 terms as x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6. I'm ready to group. First 2 terms in a parentheses, second 2 terms in a parentheses. First 2 terms I factor out an x, and I'm left with an x minus 3. Second 2 terms I factor out a 2, and I'm left with an x minus 3. If you don't get duplicate parentheses, then you haven't done these steps right. You haven't split up properly. So now this is going to be x minus 3 times x plus 2. Or, if you prefer, x plus 2 times x minus 3. You might know a way to avoid this strategy, and that would be good, because we'll learn that in a bit. And if you know a strategy already to make this less painful, I'm not married to this strategy. Let's do 17 together because it has the new signs. 17, the signs are plus first and minus second. I still need a plus and minus when I'm rewriting, but the larger number needs to be positive. So first step, because there isn't a common factor in 17, as I look at the factors of negative 12, I need 1 plus and 1 minus, larger number plus, bigger number minus. So for 12, negative 12, I can say it's 12 times negative 1. I can say it's 6 times negative 2, or I can say it's 4 times negative 3. That's the proper numbers to think about. Those multiply to negative 12, bigger number plus. Done with kind of that second step, the step after the greatest common factoring. Now I'm going to add these and see if I can get the right pair. I'm going to do 12 plus negative 1. I'm going to do 6 plus negative 2. And I'm going to do 4 plus negative 3. So we're doing 17. 12 plus negative 1 is positive 11. 6 plus negative 2 is positive 4. 4 plus negative 3 is 1. I'm trying to shoot for that 4x, so I'm going to need the pair that has 6 and negative 2. So now I know the pair that I need, and I'm going to rewrite that 4x, and I'm going to have choices. I can rewrite my 4x as 6x plus negative 2x. That's the same as 6x minus 2x. Or I can write as minus 2x plus 6x. If I have a negative and a plus, I like the negative to be first because it makes the factoring easier. Now I'm ready to rewrite the problem. This is all side work to help me decide how to rewrite the problem using 4 terms. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as x squared minus 2x plus 6x minus 12 and group. First 2 terms in a parentheses, second 2 terms in a parentheses. The common factor from the first 2 terms is x. When I factor out an x, I'm left with an x minus 2. Second 2 terms, there's a common factor of a 6. When I factor out a 6, I'm left with an x minus 2 again. Have to get duplicate parentheses. If you don't get duplicate parentheses, then you haven't broken up the middle term properly. We're already pushing 30 minutes. I don't want to do too much more on this video. So I'm going to skip a few problems. No, maybe I don't have to skip so much. I'm going to try 18. Or I'm going to try 22, should I say. So for 22, x squared plus 5x plus 2, that's the top row of my template. I'm going to take the number 2 and I'm going to write the factors of it that are both positive. 2 is a prime number, its only factors are 1 and 2. Done with step 1. I'm going to move on to step 2 and add these factors. 1 plus 2 equals to 3. I'm going to move on and figure out how to split this up. My goal is to rewrite this 5x, and my only choice is using the 1 and the 2. I can't factor this because the only choices that I have for the last number don't add up to the middle number. This can't be factored. When you can't find a pair of numbers that do what they need to do, multiply with the right signs to the last number, add to the middle number, we say that this can't be factored. And we call that prime. One more and then we'll move on to a part 2 where we'll learn how to do this factoring using something I call sight factoring. Let's do 27. So 27 is y squared minus 3y minus 11. I need to work on the factors of minus 11. My template tells me I need a plus and a minus with the smaller number positive. So I'm going to write the factors of minus 11. Smaller number positive, bigger number negative. Those are the only factors of minus 11 that are going to be useful because those are the only numbers that multiply out to negative 11, smaller number positive, bigger number negative. Now let me go to the next step and add these numbers. 1 plus negative 11 is negative 10. I need a pair that give me that negative 3. The only pair of factors that I have to choose from, they don't give me anywhere close to negative 3. I can't find a pair of numbers that have smaller number plus, bigger number minus, that multiply to minus 11, that add up to negative 3. That means that this can't be factored, that it's considered a prime polynomial. Hopefully that wasn't ridiculous. It's 31 minutes, which is, right on the cusp as long as I want to be. We're going to learn in part 2 how to avoid grouping and get the same answer more efficiently.